If there was ever a series I had a disproportionate love for growing up compared to how much time I actually spent on the source material, it'd be Team Fortress 2. I've mentioned my history with the game before when I talked about Portal, putting a few dozen hours in on a fire hazard of a family laptop, putting a few more into the shitty orange box version on Xbox 360, and now putting just a bit more into the game on the laptop I'm using to type out this script. The game's a ton of fun, but I wouldn't say I'm intimately familiar with it by any means. The bulk of my experience comes from just watching gameplay as background footage in YouTube videos about it. But what I am familiar with are the characters. I've read bits and pieces of the comics here and there, shout out to some of the most heartbreaking panels I've ever seen in my life, but arguably the most well-known piece of supplementary material for this game are the character trailers. I've seen people rank the classes, their best and worst weapons, plenty of stuff relating to the gameplay, but in spite of how iconic and widely memed most of these are, and how easy it seems like it'd be to guess the fan favourites, I've never seen a video ranking the Meet the Team videos before, so I intend to do just that. Or should I say, we intend to do just that.
Howdy, I'm your friendly neighborhood Larry Winwood. You may know me from some of Biff's highlight reels from his Death Battle reviews, or maybe just some fight animations I like to post once in a blue moon on my channel. Much like Biff here, I too am a huge fan of these psychotic mercenaries, with my first impression of them being from these animated shorts. I played a ridiculous amount of TF2 during my time in high school, so it's safe to say that this series is pretty special to me. You know, a game does a good job making a name for itself when one of the most iconic sound effects is a guy eating a sandwich.
Now feels like a good time to mention that we're only counting the main 9 Mercenaries trailers for this. Meet the Sandwich doesn't count, as great as it is. The dialogue is funny, but it's also just one shot of the inside of a fridge and occasionally the door will open. I don't know what else you want from me, and ranking it alongside the rest of them sounds really tricky. We're also not going to cover expiration date, since that's much longer and gets to tell an actual story. It's going for something completely different and wouldn't feel right to include.
Both are incredible though. Those Red Team ladies would know how to break a spine in. Anyways, we both came up with our own separate rankings for these trailers, which we'll show off later, and pretty much combined the points, so to speak, to make a combined ranking of these Meet the Character shorts. We both had a couple of ties which we did have to discuss after the fact, till we came to an agreement. It was very difficult considering how good these are.
Yeah, there's not a bad trailer to be found here. Even at their worst, they're still solids. So let's go find out what the weakest link was.
This is a bucket.
Dear God.
There's more.
No.
Man, I love Soldier. He's one of the funniest mercs in the game to me. Unfortunately, I don't think Meet the Soldier quite does that justice. He's not unfunny by any stretch, and the late Rick May still gives an excellent vocal performance capturing the character's manic energy, but I feel like this has the least amount of iconic lines out of any of them. When I think of funny Soldier quotes, more often than not my mind will go to expiration date before his short, which isn't the case for anyone else.
There's also this one shot that isn't very easy on the eyes, where the soldier is running through the battlefield with the camera shaking like crazy, which I don't believe is a problem for any of the other trailers. The only one I can really think of is Demo Man, but it's far less noticeable or annoying. That being said, during this scene, I love the part where the medic just really tries to bring needles to a rocket fight, and the soldier just turns around, calls him a maggot, and immediately kills him. That was really just funny to me. Not to mention, this shot of the soldier slapping the spy across the face with a shovel as they try to uncloak and backstab him goes really hard.
My favourite joke has to be the little end clip after the
And from that day forward, anytime a bunch of animals are together in one place, it's called a zoo.
like he realised too late that, oh right, farms exist, and had to correct himself. Also, the reveal that the troops he'd been lecturing were severed heads of the other mercs he'd killed is golden. And despite the shaky cam, I think the gameplay portions do a good job showing what stock soldier gameplay is like, demonstrating the power of his rockets and letting him rocket jump around the battlefield.
The beginning scene where it looks like the soldier is commander for a team of cadets is also really good, as he quotes a real saying from Sun Tzu, which does a good job showcasing his passion for the art of war, while also somewhat tricking the audience into thinking he knows what he's talking about, before eventually revealing just how stupid and crazy he is with the aforementioned dead heads and mixing up the art of war and Noah's Ark story, which is fun.
I don't know what you mean by crazy. Only the levelest of heads would callously bash 2 grenades together in front of his face like this. But yeah, solid short, just clearly on the weaker side.
Making bacon.
Before I rewatched all of these and tried to think of a weakest link out of them, my mind went to Meet the Engineer. Upon a rewatch though, this one was quite a bit better than I remembered, even if it has a bit less going on than most of the others. I guess that's fitting given what stereotypical NG gameplay looks like.
Look, I know it may seem like we may not be doing much just sitting around next to our turret, but you don't know how absolutely stressful it is to protect what is essentially our children to your last breath. That being said, I think the trailer does a pretty good job telling you what the engine's about. While it obviously doesn't show off his build like the teleporter or the dispenser, it still showcases his most important tool, being the sentry, as well as his role of working on defending a particular area, even going as far as showing us all 3 levels of the sentry separately to allow us to see the difference in escalation between them.
Missed opportunity to have him get his beer from a dispenser. Yeah, even though most of Enji's arsenal isn't shown, it does a great job showing off his more gentle personality. He'll still have his weaponry take you out if you try and cross him, but he isn't aggressively seeking anyone out or anything. He's just sitting back with a cold one and playing his guitar, coming across as really friendly until his very last line, which is a cool contrast to the rest of it. Gotta say though, these other guys' aim sucks. What the hell is going on here?
Shout out to that one sniper who tried to sneak in from the back and try to pull a fast one though. Yeah, the NG's lines are pretty great, with his use a gun advice, and him saying you best hope it's not pointing at you being easily my favorite. Anyways, not really too much to say here. Nothing too bad like the shaky camel like the last one, but it's also pretty simple. Engineer is one of my goats though. We Texans gotta stick together. Yeehaw, brother.
Put dispenser here!
For what's essentially Valve's mascot character, you would think that Meet the Heavy would get higher up than this. The relatively low placement's nothing to be ashamed of though. These are all so good that even getting this high is still fairly impressive. I really love this one. It's just a simple showing of a guy info dumping about the weapon that he really likes. And despite how excited he can get in the heat of combat, the softer vocal performance from Gary Schwartz for most of this makes Heavy come across as more of a gentle giant.
While this, aside from maybe the engineers, is the trailer with the least amount going on, I would go as far as to say that the final shot of the Heavy mowing down the enemy team while also having the time of his life is one of the most iconic shots from these trailers. Also, this one may have the contender for one of my favorite lines.
I've yet to meet one that can outsmart a bullet.
Deadly Hell showcases Heavy's more straightforward approach to combat. He's not the type to try to outmaneuver an opponent or wait for an opening to land a swift killing blow. He's just the type of class you would use when you want to go in guns a-blazing.
Much like the character himself, this trailer is fairly straightforward. Now every time I see someone missing shots with this gun, I'll think about the taxpayer dollars going to waste. I wonder who'd dare to lay a hand on Sasha though, or if Heavy killed them as soon as the camera stopped rolling.
One of life's greatest mysteries. You can definitely tell that this is one of the first trailers they made for the cast, even if you didn't watch them in order. Definitely didn't push what it could do like with the future shorts, but despite that, I think this trailer did its job and it did it well.
Look mate, you know who has a lot of feelings? Blokes that bludgeon their wife to death with a golf trophy. Professionals have standards. How about fucking do?
Meet the Sniper was one of the biggest differences in opinion that Larry and I had, with it being in my top 3 and his bottom 3. It tied with another one, but after a discussion we decided we'd let that one rank higher. I've always found this to be one of the more memorable trailers, getting to see how Sniper carries his job out over greater spans of time and how he remains patient as he camps up in his tall vantage points. There's even a time lapse where we see the Jarate jars filling up in the background. How delightful.
May sound like a broken record for saying this, but me putting this near the bottom does not mean I dislike this one at all. Just in my opinion at least, the ones I've had above had more jokes that landed for me, but that isn't to say there weren't any good jokes here. I love the phone call he had with his parents where he had to specify the difference between an assassin and a crazed gunman. Plus him accidentally getting a double kill by blinding the Doberman was also great as well.
I like how he gets to show he's more than just a crazed gunman with his professional code of conduct, making sure he remains polite even in front of the bodies of those he'd killed. I guess by that point he hadn't figured out that he could throw his piss jars at people. Although I'm not sure if it's just me, but the "have a plan to kill everyone you meet" line kinda gets drowned out by the music, which I didn't notice for any other line in any of these. That's only a slight blemish on what I otherwise find to be an incredibly funny short that manages to make the most out of a class that won't be seeing as much action on their front lines as his teammates. Similar to Engineer in a way, but this one was pulled off in a way that I found more entertaining.
Definitely was difficult to decide the placing between this one and the next one, but as the Sniper puts it,
Long as there's 2 people left on the planet, someone is gonna want someone dead.
Think fast, chuckle nuts!
wow, I don't even know where to start with this trailer. I mean, do you know who we're even talking about? The Scout is easily my favorite of the TF2 mercenaries. He just has a really funny and energetic personality, brought to life beautifully by Nathan Vetterlin. Plus his gimmicks is the one that makes me play him the most, which this sort does a really good job selling to me. We start off with some quote-unquote gameplay shots, with him leading the pack with his superior speed, as he goes around dodging around gunfire, hopping from rooftop to rooftop, and just outrunning and dodging a train. But by god, when he starts talking, he definitely steals the show for me. The hard cuts between him gassing himself up and him struggling and running away from the Heavy is not only hilarious, but does a great job showcasing how cocky and in over his head he is, taking on one of the strongest classes in the game in close quarters combat. But hey, credit what credit is due, he put his money where his mouth is and lands plenty of hits on his own, and knocks him out with a quick bonk, and takes his sandwich just to be disrespectful. Plus his lines are just really good here. Grass grows, birds fly, sun shines, and brother I hurt people is another contender for one of my favorite lines for these Meet the Crew videos.
This one did rank on the lower end for me. It's still a really good time and all, but I can't help but feel like it ends the most abruptly out of any of these. And the opening bit of gameplay, while good at showing off how fun Scout is to play, doesn't have all that much that sticks with me. This cocky bastard is great at running his mouth, but he doesn't get any lines until after the title card drops. From then on though, it's great. I love his monologue and how it cuts between that and his fight with Heavy. I will say that the end tag is one of my favourites. I love the shot of him eating the sandwich on top of his vanquished foe. Other than that, it's all solid stuff. Just not quite up to the same level as some of the others for me. I think it might just be because it's on the shorter end. While a lot of the others around the same length, ironically enough, are able to get to the funny stuff quicker.
I'll knock you the fuck out, mate!
Hell yeah, Scotland representation. I love Meet the Demo Man. Gary Schwartz brings the character to life amazingly. I somehow didn't realise until recently that he shares a voice actor with a Heavy. That probably explains why he's the most prominent other character in this. I love everything Demo says in this trailer. You really get the sense that he's a man who loves nothing more than booze and bombs as he blows everyone up while absolutely plastered. His own insecurities don't matter when he can just toss a grenade towards anyone that gets in his way.
I mean, if he were a bad Demo Man, we wouldn't be sitting here watching this now, would we? This is definitely a very fun and energetic trailer, watching him literally leave a trail of explosions behind him. Definitely does a good job showing how versatile his explosives are, with him bouncing them off walls to hit his opponents behind him, him taking out sentry guns, and of course the final shot of him placing the sticky bomb traps was really cool, followed by one of the hardest lines.
Oh, they're going to have to glue you back together in hell!
That's one of my favourite lines as well for sure, as is the one with the long censor beep in the middle to let you fill in the blank yourself. Unfortunately though, I've had the magic ruined for me, as when I was looking at the transcript on the TF2 wiki to make sure I heard all the lines correctly, I found out that the uncensored audio does exist and he says,
"They got more fucking sea monsters in the Great Loch Ness than they got the likes of me."
which could also just be a placeholder line that they didn't intend to be what he actually said. I think I'm gonna go with that because the fill in the blank option leaves it open to being so much funnier. I also love the expression work on Heavy in this one. This shot here I've seen memed just as much as some of the most iconic lines in these trailers. And how that expression flips to fear as soon as he sees the sticky bombs is great. Love that Demo's chugging a drink as they all go off too, that's cinema. And I greatly appreciate the bagpipes that they add to the music in the outro.
Don't worry, pretty sure this is the last one we had little to say on. The next three are most likely the ones you are expected to make it this high.
He's a homosexual male.
I think even if you didn't know the release dates for each of these, watching them all in quick succession should make it clear which ones released first and which ones came out later down the line. As good as the older ones are, the writing in the later ones tends to be better fleshed out and the animation's able to be a lot more ambitious. Case in point, Meet the Pyro. This was the final one to release, coming out in 2012, which was several years after the first few, and I'd say it shows that off with undoubtedly the best animation and lighting on the list. The use of shadows over a lot of the characters' faces helps to build a sense of unease, and the bright hellish oranges are able to tell how terrifying and overwhelming this thing is. They strike fear into the hearts of the other mercs, making them wonder what could possibly be going on in the head behind the mask, only to reveal the funny juxtaposition that they see everything as a candy-coated rainbow sparkle wonderland and are actually making a ton of new friends out of all the cherubs that they come across.
I find the designs of the baby bugs really funny. They look like potatoes with stubby arms and legs. Anyways, like Biff said, this trailer does a terrific job showcasing just how much of a menace Pyro is, with Bull acting like some sort of slasher villain. Also, with this sword being the last one to come out, and us already seeing just how skilled and fearless all these mugs were in the previous trailers, really helps to showcase just how dangerous this man is. With tough guys like the Heavy, smart and calculated killers like the Spy, to even the more arrogant and whack Scout all being horrified by this thing who only lives to watch the world burn. Plus, all the different cuts between the cotton candy world and reality were pretty brutal, with Pyro chopping a man's skull in half, shooting the Scout right in the face with a flare, to even trapping the medic inside a barn and burning it down with him inside. Jesus Christ, like I said, real slasher movie stuff here.
I can really appreciate Pyro getting to use multiple weapons here. It answers the question of, okay, if that's what they see the flamethrower as, then how do they see the rest of their arsenal, before we're even able to ask it, and it gives some nice variety to the kills. Also, I can't think of any other shot on the list that goes quite as hard as the end tag, showing Pyro dancing away through the hole in Soldier's body as it zooms back out to show the full carnage they carried out as they slowly walk away. Even if I now can't unsee the exact frame that the real flamethrower model pops back into reality, whoops. Honestly, I'm surprised at just how well this one works. By all accounts, the contrast of fun and whimsical mixed with dark and violent should feel tired and played out, but it doesn't here. Probably because instead of, look how subversive it is for the cute kiddie thing to be edgy and adult, it's more about the merciless killer is actually completely innocently unaware that they're hurting anyone and think they're being friendly.
This unique personality trait for Pyro definitely puts him up there as one of my favorite murks, as well as this trailer doing one of the best jobs of hyping up this class and making you want to play them. Only will be rivaled by these two, of course.
I need healing.
How in the actual heck did a trailer get me this hype to play a freaking healer class of all classes? Major props. Meet the Medic was definitely a really good contender for the best Meet the Class video, showcasing probably the craziest character from the bunch. You know you're in for a fun time when the video literally starts with a scout and a demo man in a wheelchair running through a freaking war zone as they continue to get bombarded with a barrage of missiles. Definitely does a good job catching your attention, that's for sure. Only for it to cut through a shot of the Heavy and the Medic laughing and telling stories casually, despite Heavy, literally having his stomach open, with the Medic holding his heart in his hand. That and the reveal of him losing his medical license immediately reveals what type of the character the Medic is, and it's great.
I can really respect how this shows off Medic as the most traditional kind of support role by having him be the only merc to not directly attack anyone in his trailer. Everything he does on the battlefield is in service of getting his teammates back into the fight and giving them ubercharge assists. Robin Atkin-Downs gives one of my favourite vocal performances of all of the mercs, making Medic sound completely off his rocker whenever he's trying something with a big risk involved, whether it's dialogue or his maniacal laughter. Every delivery is perfect, as is the character's callous disregard for his patients. His job is to get them back in fighting condition. He doesn't care how much it hurts in the process. I love the inclusion of his pet doves as well. Archimedes being inside Heavy's chest is a funny setup for the same thing happening to Scout later without them noticing. Big fan of Scout's line here especially. And the other two doves backing away to make sure they're not standing near the other one in case it gets hit again is really funny. They also add a lot to how cool this reveal shot of the doors opening looks.
They definitely play very well into the mad scientist world with the Medic, with him being very reckless with the Heavy's heart, causing it to explode under too much voltage, him having a living spy head in his fridge which he plans to kill later, to him just putting the Heavy on the front lines against an army of soldiers despite having zero clue whether or not the ubercharge will even work. But this exchange does provide us with another top tier line.
Let's go practice medicine.
Heck, this whole scene of him operating on the Heavy was so great, they even have a level based on it in a Surgeon Simulator, which is neat.
The final shot before the ending is awesome as well. Up there is one of the best. Just Medic and his test subjects standing atop their bodies that their teamwork helped to create.
This scene really does show why Heavy respects the Medic so much, as he's the one man he's ever met to truly outsmart a bullet, making him truly bulletproof.
It was a toss-up between this and the number 1 spot, literally since it was a tie between our top two. Ultimately though, we agreed that the gold medal should go to...
Gentlemen?
Meet the Spy has been my favourite of these for years now, and while Medic gave some solid competition, this remains the pinnacle of the Meet the Team trailers in my eyes. It just does everything right. It has the hilarious banter between the characters. It has the cool looking shots. It has impeccable voice acting from Dennis Bateman. It demonstrates all the parts of Spy's stock loadout effectively, and it has a unique story element setting it apart from the others by having you guessing who the Red Spy is until the reveal at the end. It creates the tension with what I'd say is my favourite music track of the bunch, even exceeding the pyros and how it builds that tension. It balances that more unsettling tone with a much greater variety of the kinds of jokes it tells. I swear, every 20 seconds they drop the new greatest line you've heard all day. The delivery of
No. That would be your mother.
has lived rent-free in my mind for years.
This short definitely had the most jokes that landed perfectly, that's for sure, and it really did showcase really well what the Spy is all about, with how he's the type of class that focuses more on infiltration, getting behind enemy lines, focusing on getting quick and sneaky kills, from hacking enemy weapons with the Sapper, taking out anyone who's away from the group like he did with the Sniper, to even using the ability to change into the enemy's colors to blend in. This does a fantastic job showing just how clever you have to be to play as the Spy. Definitely shows how smart the Spy is, being able to perfectly copy the mannerisms of people like the Scout. Funnily enough, the only time he really breaks character is when the photo of the Scout's mom gets shown. That's right, that wasn't him pretending to freak out as the Scout. That was him actually being caught off guard of someone actually capturing pictures of him at his most vulnerable, and I think that's hilarious.
Speaking of Spy being vulnerable, I think it's genuinely impressive that this still manages to sell him as one of the deadliest mercs on the roster despite the fact that it's the only one where the subject character is killed. In a scene with perfect comedic timing that cuts right through the tension, I might add. The intense music coupled with how quickly and easily he beats everyone else in CQC sells him as a force to be reckoned with, even without his disguises allowing for a sneak attack. I like how the slice across Sniper's cheek ends up giving him a scar that stays on his model within the actual game, and it's a really sick reveal when he shows that Scout was the one that he was disguised disguising himself as, recontextualizing the rest of his actions earlier on. I also like how he announces himself to Soldier and Heavy before he kills them. He could use the element of surprise to take them out, but he doesn't need it. Then the stabbing sound syncing with the music in the end card is the perfect note to go out on. Again, it was a close call between this and Medic, but eventually we agreed that Meet the Spy deserved its place at the top of the list. Without a doubt my favourite of the Meet the Team trailers. Its fan favourite status is fully deserved. And so that's our list. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll put our separate rankings on screen for those curious in how the ordering differed between us. Thanks again to Larry for joining me on this one. Now go plug whatever social medias you want people to check out.
While I haven't been active much nowadays, feel free to check out my YouTube channel, where I like to make sprite animations, or my Twitter account where I usually showcase my art. Thanks for having me on. It was definitely fun to look back at all the Meet the Crew videos. They were what introduced me to TF2 and the balanced list of great characters, which I only wanted to learn more about. Team Fortress 2 is a very fun game that I enjoyed playing a lot of, so I'm glad I got the chance to talk about them here.
Yeah, it's been fun revisiting these for the first time in a while. It was a blast working on this with you. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to take after the example of the Scotsman in the game and drink until I pass out. Have a good one, everybody.